My name is Kathy Bonneville Hicks, and I'm the president of the Arlington Historical Society. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this very special event. Born and raised in Arlington, I spent my career in the Arlington school system. I have witnessed firsthand the magnificent history of this county, and I am honored to be the president of the Arlington Historical Society. Our society members work diligently to preserve and share this great history. We conduct free public events, serve as guest speakers for local community groups, provide numerous resources and research on Arlington history, and work to preserve all aspects of Arlington's history. Most importantly, we operate two museum properties. One is a 1740s homestead that helps the community learn about Arlington during colonial times, and our premier property, the Arlington Historical Museum, located in the Hume School, the oldest standing school in the county. Built in 1891, this museum is on the National Register of Historic Places and houses artifacts of Arlington from the time this area was home to Indian tribes up to the present day. As you might imagine, an 1891 building requires upkeep. We have been working this fall with a local preservation group to make plans to preserve and renovate this museum. Our goal is to ensure we have a first-class museum to be appreciated and enjoyed by all of Arlington residents and visitors. We are assisted by the Warren G. Stanbaugh Memorial Foundation in achieving this goal. During this event, you will learn more about the Arlington Historical Museum, but we also want to talk about and remember one of Arlington's leaders from the past. Warren G. Stanbaugh was a delegate in Arlington County. You'll learn of his accomplishments and even how he helped the museum in the past. Here to tell you more is former delegate Karen Darner. When Warren died unexpectedly, Karen succeeded him as delegate. She is currently a trustee of the Warren G. Stanbaugh Memorial Foundation, and we welcome her to this event.
Thank you, Kathy. I have a question for you. Why do we remember Warren Stanbaugh? 30 years ago, in this month, 1990, Delegate Warren Stanbaugh suddenly and unexpectedly died of a heart attack. This was a terrible loss for both Arlington and the Commonwealth of Virginia. He was a longtime friend of mine, and I'd like to share with you one of Warren's most important pieces of legislation that became law in 1985, and it has an importance right now to the Arlington Historical Society and its museum at Hume School right here in Arlington. Warren was a legislator who represented Arlington for 16 years in the legislature or Virginia General Assembly. He was an inspiring lawmaker who persevered with determination, commitment, and resourcefulness to bring into being the Virginians with Disabilities Act in 1985. This act accomplished two things. It protected the rights of all people with disabilities living in Virginia, changing opportunities from day one for each person. And it began, this is the second thing, it began changing the attitudes of the people about these same people. I like to say it said, yes, you can, or yes, they can, in a law. This law went beyond another one, Public Law 94-142 of 1975. It was an education mandate for all public schools, called Education of All Handicapped Children Act. Our Virginia bill protected people of all ages, all disabilities, not just those who may be in wheelchairs, and no matter where they were living in Virginia. This bill, when it became law, changed the world for some, and in doing so, this law helped make it a better world for all of us. A little background on another law might help here too. Have you ever heard of the GI Bill? In 1944, Congress passed this bill to give some extra benefits to soldiers or vets who had been in World War II. It was supposed to be for all of those soldiers, but it was adopted 40 years before the Virginians with Disabilities Act, when soldiers around the country tried to go to a college for job training and academic classes. Those women and men who had been wounded in the war and were left with a disability like only one leg or had been blinded and found he or she needed too much help to go to classes or get to and from classrooms or even pay tuition, realized it was not accessible to get around there. No college in the United States of America was accessible. There were lots of stairs, many very long walks, an outside and inside door that were too close together, so no one could use this extra benefit created for all World War II vets. 1948 arrived, and fortunately, Tim Nugent, himself a veteran, worked with campus design and faculty and groups of disabled vets to put in place the only college in the United States where there were buses with lifts, course accommodations like taped notes, and dorm rooms and board being in the cafeterias. Now these disabled vets could attend college as the GI Bill was made for. One college. But that was an improvement. By 1958, 13 years after the war ended, there were 2 colleges, both in Illinois. I graduated from the University of Illinois, and I had no idea it was the first of only 2 that were designed for and encouraged veterans with disabilities to attend. I assumed every college in our country was accessible. In my first 2 years, I had a blind professor with a seeing eye dog. I can guarantee the blind professor was excellent, prepared, and challenging. He had been given an extraordinary opportunity, and we, his sighted students, benefited. We even learned a little bit about service dogs as we sat and watched this one every day. Thanks to the GI Bill, this happened. Now back to Warren. He became a supporter of a new bill to create the Virginians with Disabilities Act in 1984. Delegate Stambaugh worked with many groups of disabled people throughout Virginia. For 35 years now in Virginia, people have had the law providing them with some of the accommodations required for places they go to or things that they do themselves, and so do many other people. They are accommodated or helped by elevators, electric wheelchairs, service animals, Braille reading materials, special hearing aids, and sign language interpreters or guides on a tour or in a museum. Did you know someone with a disability who may not be able to see or hear or understand and even enter a museum or a school? The museum could be the Hume School of the Arlington Historical Society. Our goal is to do better at the Hume Museum. As we work to fix up the building, we need to make sure it's accessible to all of our Arlington community, to all of the Virginia community, or anyone else visiting the state. The Warren G. Stambaugh Memorial Foundation has been doing that since it started right after his death. It was started to be an organization where anyone donates money in Warren's honor, and then when a student with a disability needs funds to go to college or get special training, she or he can get a scholarship from the foundation to help. The foundation has helped disabled vets get special training like skiing to get a special job in very cold weather somewhere. We've given funds to purchase special equipment someone needs and to train service dogs to find things someone has lost in a house. Or there are many other projects we've invested in. So many people are looking for help in some way, and we are very proud when each person can do well after we lend a hand. They feel good too. We do have some pictures of Warren at work in the Richmond Capitol, and we're proud to introduce all of these things to you as he tells more about Warren.
Thank you, Karen. And now, we are fortunate to have former delegate Jim Ullman to tell us about Warren G. Stambaugh and his legacy. Jim is pictured here in the 1980s with Warren Stambaugh. The two served together in the General Assembly.
Hello, I'm Jim Ullman, and I want to share more of Warren's achievements during his legislative career, most notably the Virginians with Disabilities Act. Many thanks to Susan Prokoff, who prepared this PowerPoint slide presentation with accompanying commentary. 35 years ago, Virginia enacted one of the first major state disability rights laws in the United States. This presentation shares some of the story of its passage and the state legislator who played a significant role in shepherding it through to success. In the 1980s, 64 disability organizations formed a coalition known as INVEST, Ensure Virginians Equal Status Today, to accomplish passage of the Virginians with Disabilities Act. This landmark civil rights legislation declared the state's commitment to support and encourage persons with disabilities to participate fully in the social and economic life of the Commonwealth. It preceded the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act by 5 years and is considered by many to be the model for the federal legislation that created the ADA. This effort was a policy priority of the Robb administration. The proposed Virginians with Disabilities Act is the product of a year's deliberation by the Governor's Overall Advisory Council on Needs of Handicapped Persons, GO Act. The GO Act was assisted by the State Advocacy Office for the Developmentally Disabled in conducting public hearings across the state. The Institute of Law, Psychiatry, and Public Policy assisted in the preparation of GO Act's final draft of the legislative proposal. The Robb administration turned to Delegate Warren Stambaugh of Arlington, Virginia, to serve as the chief patron of the Virginians with Disabilities Act. Elected in 1973, Warren brought to the General Assembly a strong commitment to representing the needs of those least able to advocate for themselves. He had an extensive record of fighting discriminations of every form. He supported efforts to deny tax exemptions to private schools which discriminate against Black children, supported creation of a state human rights commission, successfully sponsored legislation which strengthened Arlington's ability to enforce fair housing laws, and supported efforts to correct sex-based salary inequities in state government. In the early 1980s, he had been appointed to a legislative commission examining the state's civil commitment laws. Through that work, as well as visits to constituents' relatives at Western State Hospital and service on the board of the Northern Virginia Mental Health Association, he learned about the ways in which the rights of many Virginians with disabilities were violated and ignored. As a result, Warren pursued legislation to prevent warehousing of people with mental illness, improve the process of patient reviews, and to provide for coverage of mental health care in group insurance policies. In news articles over the years, Arlington, in news articles over the years and in friends' recollections, Warren was described as an acerbic, irreverent outsider, tenacious debater, who over his 16 years as a legislator became an influential insider and backroom deal maker, who relished the chance to outmaneuver those who opposed him. He frequently was mentioned as a future majority leader or Speaker of the House. Such qualities would serve him well in shepherding the VDA through to its passage. Delegate Stambaugh was responsible for an exceptional record of legislative accomplishments during his service. He worked with colleagues in the Arlington Legislative Delegation to secure funding for capital improvements to the Arlington Historical Society Museum. He sponsored legislation to ensure funding for the metro system and improve working conditions and benefits for public employees. He authored legislation that made it possible for Arlington to offer tax incentives to landlords who rehabilitate their property rather than displace tenants by converting apartments to condominiums, and used his position on the House Finance Committee to make Virginia's tax system fairer for all its citizens. One year, he was rated the 8th most effective member of the 100-member House of Delegates by journalists covering the General Assembly, one of only 2 members of a committee that did not chair a committee. Delegate C. Richard Cranwell, Democrat from Benton, a close friend and chairman of the powerful House Finance Committee during Warren's time in the House, once said, quote, "If you look at all the major issues over the last 5 years, they all have Warren's fingerprints on them," end quote. While he was a very serious legislator, Warren also took seriously the concerns of constituents who didn't always get the attention of policymakers. In the late 1970s, a 4th grade class in Arlington wrote to him about their study of insects and noted that other states had designated a state insect. They proposed that Virginia adopt the praying mantis as the state insect. Warren worked with them to craft a bill, helped them organize to testify before the House General Laws Committee, and accompanied them when the bill was heard there. Although it passed the House of Delegates, a competing Senate measure ultimately derailed the effort. It did, however, earn Warren the nickname Bugs from his friends and colleagues. The Virginians with Disabilities Act was introduced by Delegate Stambaugh in the 1984 session of the Virginia General Assembly as House Bill 817. The bill declared, quote, "It is the policy of the Commonwealth to encourage and enable persons with disabilities to fully participate and equally in social economic life of the Commonwealth and to engage in remunerative employment." It included provisions: 1, forbidding discrimination against people with disabilities in any program or activity receiving state financial assistance or under any program or activity conducted by or on behalf of any state agency. 2, prohibiting employment discrimination against, quote, "otherwise qualified persons with disabilities," end quote, and required employers to make reasonable accommodations for those persons to enable them to perform the jobs. 3, requiring educational institutions to ensure admission to the institution and equal access to and enjoyment of any of its educational or extracurricular programs to an otherwise qualified person with a disability because of such disability. And finally, declaring that a person with a disability has the same rights as other persons to the full and free use of public places and places of public accommodation. House Bill 814 sailed through the House on a vote of 96-1, but it stalled in the Senate. The state's powerful business lobbyists, including the State Chamber of Commerce, began an extensive lobbying effort to raise doubts about the bill. Supporters of the VDA were particularly frustrated over the last-minute objections raised by business and municipal groups, believing their opposition less rooted in technical reasons than philosophical, in the belief that physical and mental disabilities are a personal, not societal responsibility. Indeed, according to a story in the Washington Post, chamber executives had to apologize for a strongly worded staff memo that urged legislators to, quote, pull the plug, end quote, on the bill because it would be cheaper to place the disabled, quote, on a weekly dole, end quote, than pay for its provisions. Warren argued that existing state anti-discrimination statutes implied such responsibilities even if they do not spell them out, and therefore the VDA was only codifying what already existed. Unfortunately, all members of the Senate Rehabilitation and Social Services Committee were not convinced, and the bill was carried over to the 1985 session. Frustrations of advocates were captured in comments of a spokesman for the disabled American veterans. Quote, these laws are already on the federal books and they're the only protection we have. It's time for Virginia to look after the right of all its citizens, end quote. With Warren in the lead and working with allies in the General Assembly, supporters pursued various legislative maneuvers to resuscitate the bill and brought it back in the 1985 session, where it was ultimately successful. On March 21st, 1985, Virginia Governor Charles S. Robb signed into law the Virginians with Disabilities Act, predating the Americans with Disabilities Act by over 5 years. The VDA sought to strengthen existing statutes governing vocational rehabilitation services and the rights of Virginians with disabilities, enhance employment protections for those with disabilities, and create a new Department of Rights of the Disabled. Life is action and passion. I think it is required of a man that he should share in the action and passion of his time at peril of being judged not to have lived, said Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. This was a favorite quotation of Warren Stambo's that properly reflects his lifelong response to the public arena and his work in the Virginia General Assembly. Sadly, Warren died suddenly on November 14th, 1990, just a few short months after the passage of the Americans with Disability Act. Thanks to his efforts and those of countless advocates and allies that worked alongside him, Virginia was a leader in the disability rights movement and part of the rich history of people with disabilities claiming their proper place in the life of the Commonwealth and the United States of America.
I moved to Arlington, Virginia in August of 1994. Obviously, I never got to meet Warren, but I believe that locating to Arlington was not a random coincidence. I, my husband, and 3 young children were relocating to the area from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, after I became ill with autoimmune disease, became a wheelchair user, and needed to live somewhere with accessible transit, good schools, and accessible housing. My husband got a job with NOAA, and we had options to live anywhere around the Beltway. But friends who knew the area encouraged us to look in Arlington because it checked all the boxes. We looked around and found this to be true, and since then, we've made Arlington our home. I believe that Warren's vision and legislative fingerprints were all over the inclusive Arlington that welcomed me. The Virginians with Disabilities Act was a hard-fought legislative battle, otherwise known as a heavy lift. Warren persevered and got the seminal Civil Rights Act over the finish line and wrote the blueprint for what would become the Americans with Disabilities Act. I was not the first person with a disability to discover the inclusive nature of Arlington. Living all along the Orange Line in Arlington were individuals who had come from across the country after 1985 and the passing of the Virginians with Disabilities Act to advocate, lobby, and help write what would become the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. To this day, the work continues as we build on Warren's vision and hard-fought legislative win. Arlington's residents continue to work for an ever more inclusive place to live, work, study, raise a family, and dream of what is possible.
Thank you for these vital insights into the accomplishments of Warren Stambaugh and how he and Virginia made history. Now, I would like to address a number of challenges and opportunities facing the Arlington Historical Society. Here's a video tour of Hume School and our existing museum, conducted by Dr. Mark Bembo, the director of the museum.
Hello, my name is Dr. Mark Bembo, and I'm the director of the Arlington Historical Museum. Our museum is located on land that was originally owned by Frank Hume, a veteran of the Civil War. Mr. Hume sold the property to the county for $250 and donated additional land for a playground. In 1891, the Hume School was built. This Queen Anne-style building operated as a public school in the Arlington County school system into the late 1950s. As you approach the building, you notice the tower bell, which brought young students running to the building in the early 1900s. It's currently the oldest standing school building in Arlington County. When the school closed its doors, a county campaign led to the building being deeded to the Arlington Historical Society for educational purposes. The society purchased additional land to maintain the current views of Washington, D.C. The museum was renovated in the early 1960s and became home of the Arlington Historical Society, as well as a museum for exhibits telling the rich history of Arlington. Today, this building houses more than 4,500 artifacts dating back to the early 1800s, including Civil War cannonballs found in the county, John Glenn's water ski, and artifacts of daily life from pre-contact Native Americans to signs about COVID-19. The artifacts are rotated through our main floor exhibit area. We also have a schoolroom on the second floor of the property, which is displayed as it might have looked when the school opened in the 1890s. Our collection continues to expand each year as generous Arlingtonians share with us their finds. The museum is open to interested visitors, and we encourage school groups to visit our museum and explore Arlington's history. Preservation of the museum is a continuous challenge. As the museum is on the National Register of Historic Places, we have worked to keep it maintained through donations and membership fees. However, as we enter the building, you'll note the challenges that we face. Our exhibit area is very limited and hard to access for all. Our collection has grown and has encroached on our exhibit space, and we have exhibits in every possible nook and cranny. The storage of artifacts in non-climate controlled circumstances make it a challenge to keep them in archival condition. For example, our basement houses some artifacts, but it's not the right condition for most of them. The curving staircase makes second floor inaccessible to most. As we work to create more exhibit space upstairs, it really needs to be accessible. And the major systems of the building require overhaul. Arlington is a first-class county with a rich history. We need your help to make sure this museum will be here to tell the story of Arlington in the years to come.
Next, I would like you to hear from Delegate Patrick Hope, board member of the Arlington Historical Society.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm Patrick Hope. I'm a delegate in the Virginia General Assembly representing Arlington and a proud board member of the Arlington Historical Society. As you saw from the video, the Hume School is a beautiful historical building, but is in desperate need of renovation and update. Over the years, our collections have grown and we are outgrowing our exhibit space. All the windows need to either be replaced or renovated as moisture is coming into the museum, which could be detrimental to our collections. We also want to maintain the Hume School's 1891 structure to continue to tell Arlington's story through its rich collection of artifacts. Our goal is to create a world-class museum that goes well beyond just a simple renovation of a declining structure, but long-term plans for a museum of the future that will be the source of pride for every Arlingtonian, both young and old. One that will tell the story of Arlington's rich, diverse history and its impact on our Commonwealth and the entire nation. And we want to make certain we are able to sustain the historic structure for future generations. Now, this will be no simple undertaking. It will take a multi-year campaign bringing together committed individuals, the business community, and state and local government. Our building is already on the National Register of Historic Sites, and any physical renovation or improvement must observe the constraints imposed in the interest of historic preservation. But the end result will be the creation of something sorely lacking in Arlington, a museum of the future, reflecting our history, our accomplishments, and the lives of all those who lived here and contributed to our success. If we do not start now, then when? So as a first step, the Arlington Historical Society hired John Milner Architects, a local architectural firm with expertise in historical preservation and renovation, to provide a detailed evaluation of the shortcomings of the Hume School. We have also since been awarded a small grant to put toward this effort. The grant was awarded with the understanding that the Arlington Historical Society would identify a matching funding source. The Warren G. Stambaugh Memorial Foundation has already stepped up and offered to partner with the Arlington Historical Society and hold an event to raise these matching funds. So we are well on our way, but we need your help. The Hume School and its museum have tremendous potential to play a vital and ongoing role in our Arlington community. Together, we can create a museum in which we can all be proud, preserving our past for future generations to come.
We shall keep all of you informed as to our future progress and hope that we can count on you for your support. Best wishes for the holidays and the new year to come.
I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.